'cause it will come back to you.
Somebody said the other day, Natasha, you're so much warmer. I don't know why, but I think there's that cathartic kind of experience of creating a big, like I feel like I've been in labour for a year and a half. And it's been quite painful, like trying to give birth to this thing and make sense of this thing.
See it with your own eyes. All the pretty
My life was such a disparate, disjointed amalgamation of all different landscapes, different loved ones, all scattered and separated, and being catapulted around and not really having any roots or kind of sense of home or family or things like that. And I think that's just something that comes as a result of doing the job that I do. It was a difficult thing to make sense of that, and then going across the desert and trying to like take a little bit of that with me, or going back to England and like writing a little song on my little machine and trying to bring something that reminds me of the people that I'm missing. I think musically I was trying to connect all of these places and people and things and sew them all together to make some cohesive whole, and so I didn't feel so fragmented. Now that I've sewn them all together into this thing that I can hold, I realise that it's all inside of me anyway, and they're all still there, and it's all right. And I'm happy that it's done. For the first album, I was like a little kid being really excited about being in this studio and having like a big selection of instruments, and I was like in a sweet shop, you know, like the first time, and it was amazing.
queens and the court jesters clapped, adored. Their hearts flew to overdrive. Mercy soared. Mercy this and mercy that, the justice prevailed. But I just want my trophy back. It's not for sale.
So the first record, I was living in the same place, and I had a chance to play with Caroline and Abby a couple of times a week, and I was working as a nursery school teacher, and I was just had my piano in the same spot where I knew where it was, and I could just let things develop, and I feel like there was like life and art kind of intermingled in that kind of much more consistent and communal way.
To live life outside the world, to break the cross that bears her name. She's not your queen anymore, queen of the highway. Need something better than running away. She really loves him, said I. She really loves him, said I. She really loves him, I tell you. She really loves
Because of having a relationship that spanned different countries and family that lived in different countries and obligations to tour to different places, all my preoccupations, all the things I had to do were geographically separated. and I was the only thing that was kind of keeping all those things together. So I think through like physical reality, but then also as a kind of emotional reflection of my environment, it just became that way. And I think there's a longing for it not to be that way, and that's why I was trying to connect it all together in some form of work and make sense of it. This time it's been a very different feeling, but a quiet and kind of sullen excitement. Like I feel excited, I feel like it's this powerful thing that's slowly awakening, and I'm watching it unfold in a much more conscious way than I was with the last record. The last record was very like, just hands in all the paint, and this one's kind of adding a little layer there and then going away for a bit and then coming back and delicately trying to wipe that bit away and add that. It's sort of more like that, and I'm seeing it in the moment for what it really is a bit more.
Look at this and look at us.
The first album was done in a residential, and being able to all be together for a consistent amount of time with the musicians is quite important. If you're going home at the end of the day, you can kind of come out of that whole atmosphere that you're trying to create. And yeah, so here there's a bit of we've got a vibe going, and you can do sort of impromptu vocals and just live here and live and breathe it.
Ladder to the sky, sit up there and sail mine. Just looking down, make me a queen. All the sorrow that I see, if I ever back down.
I think it's just trying to create something that is special and otherworldly. I mean, I suppose just with each album it's a universe for me of its own, and each thing that I add onto it I want to have been inhabited by that universe and been protected in some way. It's like a secret that I don't want people to find out about, so keeping it in a private, quiet space lets the beautiful magic come out. So being in the countryside is much better than coming out and seeing buses and drunk people and stuff. So I think, yeah, I just think it's good to be sort of away from it all, really.
Are you my family? Can I stay with you a while? Can I stop off in your bed tonight? I can make you smile. In the morning I'll make you breakfast. In the evening I'll warm the bed. And I'll always be happy to kiss you. Promise I'll never get sad till the siren calls.
I think I've got a very specific and clear idea of what I want for each song and for the album. Obviously, when people come in and they bring their own special style or way of seeing things, I mean, I suppose that's why I've chosen the people I've chosen, because I know that they're quite similar to me in that kind of way, that I can trust them. But obviously they then bring something added that I can't foresee, and will come up with beautiful melody lines and things, which I'm really enjoying.
No, my darling, I can't stand to sleep alone. No sweetheart in the dark to call my own.
I guess this album is kind of encompassing two landscapes. There's like the city and the desert and kind of the dryness. And so I've been coming to LA back and forth like over the past few years, and the California coast. And I came to the desert for the first time in April. Because the record's a lot about sky and planets, big skies, you know, you get that when you go to the desert. There's a barren, dusty, dry thing that's happening, and then there's this kind of celestial, heavenly thing next to it. So it's the earthbound, rootsy thing, and then you've got the ethereal thing. And I think for me, especially with this album, that's happening in the music. I love travelling and I get inspiration from landscape. Probably like that's one of my primary inspirations. I think when I'm writing, in my mind I need to be in a place, and usually I'm trying to capture a place in time or a visual landscape or something. I'm trying to capture it within the notes. So when I'm writing chords and playing things, if it resonates emotionally in here and I can also see something, then I feel that it's strong, like it's a strong representation of what I'm trying to say.
Last night's parties and last night's horror show. Smiling and running and kissing all I know. Give my soul, sing it free across the sea. Only spell to conjure you, but conjure is all I do. Lonely, lonely, lonely. My mother told me the dream of love is too hard to dream.
That song's quite a kind of pagan, witchy, Wicker Man sort of style song, which I wrote quite a while ago, and it's all about how you can go out partying, and at the end of the night you have to come home on your own, and it's just about kind of, yeah, just all the excitement, and it doesn't matter what you're doing in the daytime or in the evening, but in your bed it's nice to sort of have someone that's your sweetheart with you. But I think that's a universal theme, probably. Joshua Tree Desert, and I've been here once before, and I stayed here just to come and make some sort of arty dance films in the desert, and it was the first time I went to the Joshua Tree National Park and checked out the landscape and became acquainted with the mystical wonder of this desert. And so I wanted to come back to do a photo shoot for Days Student Views here. And it's just very apt, I think, like visually for the desert side of the record and the sand side of the record and the dirt and the heat and the animalistic kind of dusty, raw terrain that the desert, that's a big element of the album. I just think our culture can be quite kind of clinical and sanitised, especially in terms of like editorial photography and the way the press kind of represents both men and women, but maybe especially women, that it's all very kind of pristine and clean and airbrushed and perfect. And I think that for me it was about kind of getting involved with the land and being part of nature and just not minding getting dirty or messy or, you know, like not being afraid to not be perfect. And I think just being at one with nature and being in touch with the earth is something that perhaps we miss in terms of art and fashion photography. So that's why I wanted to be in the dust.
So are you thinking of some drums or something like this?
Yeah, drums or something crazy. Well, the last album I only had about 10 days or something to get the majority of things down with just a minimal amount of musicians. And it was also my first record and I was feeling very protective and I wanted to put them across in quite a purist way. And then with this one, I just wanted something a bit more lash and more physical and more confident, just more dynamic. I think if you try and do things all in one go, perhaps it sort of has a bit more of a one-dimensional quality, like trying to do a painting all in one go. I do like the idea of doing one layer and then perhaps wiping some away and redoing another bit and letting that, you know, build up slowly, because then it becomes a living, breathing, three-dimensional piece of work. When you see Lightning Bolt playing and they kind of do speed, it sounds like speed metal drumming or something.
Yeah, yeah.
So a little bit dark and evil.
So nothing, no actual beats then really. Maybe is this likely to be something that will be faded in rather than an actual beat or anything? Right, okay, so I can actually just do what the hell. Right.
When I'm writing it, it's a simplified version of it, but I'm pretty clear on what I can hear as the big macrocosmic version of it. When I'm sort of starting off the songs, I have pretty succinct demos that have bass parts and drums and chords and the vocals. The original demos are always a sort of artefact on their own, and then it's sort of bringing in all the stuff to give it real human quality and the real instruments, because I use synths and things when I'm making demos. You are now officially mentally ill. this is Williamsburg, Brooklyn, and this was my second home, I suppose, for a long time. I moved here to be near my boyfriend. There's an element of that old New York here still for me, as opposed to some parts of Manhattan, like the Lower East Side and all of that, seem to have been a bit homogenised. I think places become special when they're imbued with memories.
And like I was saying, what do you feel about Manhattan looking at it over there?
It's like the Emerald City, isn't it? Because it's so kind of graphic and like, it's all blue tinged and perfect looking, and here we are on the Brooklyn side. Glass is all about just the fact that New York to me is like a city made of glass, and I was searching for my beloved in this crazy, transparent, strange place. It's sad coming back, in a way. I think it's the contrast between the desert and the city is almost like two representations of me. For me to kind of connect that to landscapes makes sense. Particularly for this album, there's a duality. It's about a split. It's called Two Suns, and it's about like the concept of two planets and two mirrors and two opposites, and night and day and dark and light, and having to travel across the sea to see my loved one, you know, like constantly traveling and being in two countries and being two people, you know, in my public life and my personal life. And it's just, I think that for me it's easier to work with symbols and characters and visual kind of incarnations of how I'm feeling, to try and make sense of the kind of just what's happening internally. And I feel like in a totally different place now as a musician, and kind of creatively and with my confidence. But I feel that the process has also been, the timing of it has unfolded as the timing of my personal relationships have been unfolding and things have been happening. So it's almost, I've been held back by having to work through this process. And you can't write the last song on the album until you've done that with that person, or, you know, said that to that person. And so it's very much been like a, is it art imitates life, or I don't know what that saying is, but it's almost like I've had to be more patient this time because I'm going with it, you know, and going with the pace of my life at the same time. That's much cooler and more fucked up. We like that.
We love that. Well done.
It's like John Cale sort of, wasn't it, at the end?
I like doing that.
So do you want to do harmonising notes?
Yeah. In fact, if you could just play it, so let's find a note together.
I got this particular group of people together for the Radiohead support tour that we just did. And I think my criteria generally with anyone I'm working with is people that can sort of turn their hand to anything but are amazing at all of those things, multi-instrumentalists. Kath and Caroline and Ben are all swapping about on keyboards and strings, flutes, phonofiddles, marxophones, piano chords. So yeah, just having people that I can trust with my vision and being able to talk with them, and they play amazing things and I can direct it and say what I like. It's really important that there's a good vibe happening, and I do really appreciate them, and it's magic. concern about the album and how it will be received, I think, comes after the fact of writing. And when I'm in the studio, that doesn't really enter the studio. It's quite a sacred space, and I'm just trying to please myself in that environment. As far as like being clear on my vision, I don't know where that comes from. It's just always been there. The confidence, I think, comes from doing something and feeling that it's right and it resonates in a good place inside you, and you just feel like you don't really care what people think of it because it's making the right vibration. I don't know why that is or where my taste comes from. I just feel quite clear about it.
The rehearsals, I was really struggling with it, but I've got, I think I found an extra muscle in the arm.
Always useful.
I can see.
Took my ladies to the sea. We had just pressed the shells into our bones when we saw the queen in the sky. Gently revealing the treasures of her groans. We took off all of our armor.
You're such a douchebag.
Every last
Okay, fair. Where are we going to do it?
we banished the land.
Are we going to do them in stereo?
Did our bodies ride into the
So, we are here in Big Sur with the vinyl that was pressed at Capitol Building in LA. It's basically the backing vocals for the chorus of Wilderness, which is a song about going down to the ocean and swimming in the sea. So we've got 3 pieces of vinyl with 3 different sets of backing vocals on them, and we're going to try and sync them up by playing them out of battery-operated record players with speakers. And I don't know if it's going to work because we have to sync it up, but we're going to try. And hopefully we'll pick up the sound of the ocean, and this kind of whole road and this area is quite important to me as a place anyway. So if we pick it up, it will be embedded within the track eventually. So should we do a little test run?
There. That looked like it may have just jumped up.
join me in flight.
Well, I'm a water sign and I live by the sea. Just being able to look at horizons or expanses of nothing, I think, you know, you don't have to meditate very much when you live by the sea because it does it for you. So I've always wanted to be near water. When I was 20, I went to San Francisco and hung out there, and then I drove down the coast and went to Big Sur and did the Route 1 thing. And LA's good because it's got such diverse landscapes that I can draw up. And when the fires came, the smell of cinders and rain perfumed almost everything. We laughed and laughed and laughed. And in a golden blue car you took me to, the darkest place you knew and set fire to my heart. When I run in the dark to a place that's lost under a sheet of rain in my heart, I dream of home. It's showing a side of me that's not been shown before, but is very much a part of me, which is like dancing around my living room, you know, with my hairbrush and singing like Pat Benatar songs. Absolutely love it. It's the stuff I grew up on and I really love it. But to incorporate that into my kind of context of music and the things like that, it was quite a difficult balancing act to kind of use the sounds that I like, but communicate in a kind of pop music context. But I feel like I managed to kind of straddle those two worlds, and that's kind of really important to me, is to... I want to write songs that teenage girls sing into their hairbrushes in front of the mirror to, you know. Really want to do that. I did that myself, and it was brilliant, brilliant memories.
Goodbye bed with my arms around your neck. Into our mouths the tears crept, just kids in the eye of the storm. And as my house spun round, my dreams pulled me from the ground, forever to search for the flame, but home again, home again. When I run in the dark to a place that's lost, under a sheet of rain in my heart, I dream of home. When I run
No. This is for a removals program.
Why would the business go? There's a building trade and a housing.
I feel I'm taking risks. Other people might think it doesn't sound like that at all, but for me, personally, I feel like I'm having to surrender to the songs and they're dictating how they need to be treated, and I just don't really have any say. In that situation, it's so purposeful and focused, the feeling that overcomes me, that I know what it needs and I do it and I do it and I do it, and then it's like this thing that's a separate entity to me. For me, it's like people won't see me in the studio sad and feeling all those things, but I think the underlying layers of the song capture those moments, and the tears, you know, they sink into the music and it's all there. And I think it's a subconscious thing when people feel the rawness behind it, but if they don't, that's okay too, because it's my process, and then once it's out, it's a different thing, and it means different things to different people when they listen to them. Once upon a time, there was a pretty fly. He had a pretty wife. This pretty fly. But one day she Have you seen the film The Night of the Hunter? There's a really surreal part where the two little kids go down the river in a boat and she sings the Pearl's Dreams song.
She had two pretty children, but one night these two pretty children flew away into the sky, into the moon.
And the character of Pearl that's the opposite half of me in this album is like kind of, I think that was her when she was a little girl, and she's grown up having lost both her parents and travelled down a Mississippi River or whatever and landed in the middle of nowhere. I came up with like a story when I first started writing the album, which was about Pearl. You know, she's blonde, so I bought this blonde wig in New York and I put a silk shirt on and I walked down the New York sidewalk, and my friend Jordan took pictures of me, and I had red lipstick and fake eyelashes on, and I started really getting into the idea of this Pearl character and what she'd represent. And I felt like Pearl was, when I fell asleep, I would transform into Pearl, but she's like a destructive siren, banshee. She's the darker side of me.
There's a place I must go. There's a place I must go.
She just came out very kind of playfully. I also realised looking back that she came out when I was in Brooklyn because Natasha, as myself, didn't really fit in here very well. With all the booze and the parties and the socialising and the kind of superficial, like glamorous, you know, that whole kind of element to New York I really struggled with, and I think I felt more comfortable being Pearl, even though it was just a very short moment, but I had these pictures of her and I was like, there's a part of me that makes sense here. People that delve into sub-personalities or other parts of your personality and different characters that might come out, that sometimes people do that because they're trying to cope with an element of their environment that's difficult or kind of not syncing up with who they really are. And because Pearl's a lot about delusion and the fantasy of things being all right when actually you're totally heartbroken and just everything's really fucked up. I find the resonance with people who, they're really vulnerable and they're in a bad situation, but they try to make the best of it by using forms of escapism. Side, which I think all people, or maybe especially women, know about, where, you know, you want to be the good housewife, the caring and supportive and of your man, but there's kind of this moment where perhaps you go into a kind of, you slide down into the banshee, mad kind of extreme and destructive place. I don't know if that's what everybody does. I mean, yeah, well, I can.
How can it be the last show?
I feel like listening to the album as a whole, it sounds like a journey. The album sort of starts off with foretelling the madness to come, and then I think by the end it resolves. Because I like to be dramatic, we have to finish on the big sleep, and that's almost like Pearl's dying song. So it's like the last performance, the last interjection of Pearl.
It's a goodbye. It's curtains down time. Not even out of my dress, and already my voice is fading. Goodbye, my dears, and into the big
I can't really tell whether she's going to carry on, because it happens sometimes where things come into your life and then they go, and then you revisit them later on and they mean something else. And I don't want to say goodbye to her for good, you know. But I'm hoping that through exposing her and through like working with her and making friends with her that she'll subside a little bit, because she's pretty dark. She's hard to live with. You write the song when you're right in it, I think. You don't really know why this song is coming out. And sometimes you don't even really know what you're saying. And it's so amazing looking back on it how clear you were at the time. You know, it's strange just sitting at a piano and trying to sing something and putting yourself in that very position that you were when you wrote it, because, you know, you want to get back there and you want to do it justice, but it brings up a lot. You know, you're saying, is this album cathartic? And of course, I think it probably is. But it's just astounding how, as you go through your, you know, as I go through my life and I write songs, they kind of document all of these subconscious things that I don't even realise are happening. And then when you come to the recording and the kind of gathering together of all the bits, and you're tying the bow around it, you're just thinking, Jesus, this is so intense. Like, this is my life and this is what I've been living. And it's like a landmark. You know, people say rituals are really important, and it's like a ritual almost of, you know, a time that's been kind of held in crystal, and then it's time to move on again. So there's a sadness to it.
What would the drums be doing at this point? During the
drums
last
go
loud
and then all the strings and everything's going mental the whole time. Well, they build up. I kind of keep the same, really.
Yeah. Okay.
So if I let that run, if I let the last chord run, then you can just go straight to...
Okay, that should work. That should work.
Do you want to do a couple more vocals?
Yes, please. A bunch more of the vocals would be brilliant.
Are you my family? Can I stay with you a while? Can I stop off in your bed tonight? I can make you smile. In the morning I'll make you breakfast. In the evening I'll warm the bed. And I'll always be happy to kiss you. Promise I'll never get sad till the siren come calling, calling. It's driving me evil, evil. Mama was a heartbreak. I loved you the same way I do, but I've got so much wickedness and sin. My name is Pearl and When you smile, those sad eyes look sad.